anyway, I think we should probably start now. When, how long can we go to that before the lunch break? I can stop at the right time. 11 o'clock, okay. So, okay, so just to briefly just recap, we're working on the Brahmali Sutta, which means like the level of the tank, or the ground of the tank, or the grade of the tank, something like that. Just to remind you what the Sutta is about. The Sutta is about this prince who goes to the novice called Wat Chetawan, and he says to this novice that he has heard about something called unification of mind, and he says, is that possible to attain unification of mind? And the novice said, yes, it is possible. Please explain how it can be done. And then afterwards, after he has explained it, the prince said, I don't believe this can't be done by human beings to attain unification of mind. So, and then, of course, having gotten this reply, and this novice is concerned. He's concerned that maybe he hasn't taught properly, so he goes to the Buddha and asks, tell me what happened there. And the Buddha starts to give the simile of the taming of an elephant. This is to explain basically how unification of mind comes about. How do you get samadhi? This is the purpose of this simile that we have been looking at before. The gradual taming of elephants from the first stages of bringing out of the forest until it becomes imperturbable, as it says, imperturbable like you are solid, won't move. You are kind of you can't be disturbed anymore by external things, right? So imperturbability. So then the Buddha then starts to talk about the training of a monk, or a nun for that matter, or a lay Buddhist. It doesn't really matter. And then he compares the training of the monk to this taming of the elephant. So how does the taming of a monk come about, so to speak? That's what this is about. And it starts off then saying that the Tathagata appears in the world. And that start point there, the Tathagata appears in the world, is the same starting point that you have with the gradual training. The gradual training that takes you from the beginning of path all the way to the end, always starts in that way, with the Tathagata, the Buddha arrives in the world. That is the beginning of the path. And then it says in the Pali that you restrain yourself according to the rules. And in the Chinese argument, it says that you practice purity of body, speech, and mind. That is an interesting difference there. And then, as I mentioned yesterday, at this point, in the Pali, you have the whole process of the gradual training explained in detail. Whereas in the Chinese argument, that is actually missing. It's not there. Can you hear me properly? Everybody? Yeah? You're okay? Yes, okay. So in the Chinese argument, it's missing. And this is one of those interesting things, because you find this out only by doing comparative studies of the sutta in the different languages. And the question arises, why is it that in one case you have this whole gradual training, whereas in the Pali all you have is the beginning stage, isn't it? And then it drops a large part, and then it comes in at the later stage with the four Satipatthana. So why is that happening here? And the thing is that when the sutta goes through oral transmission, because of the nature of oral transmission, sometimes it's quite easy that material gets inserted into the sutta. And in this particular case, because it starts off with the Tathagata arising in the world, because that is like the beginning of the gradual training, usually, perhaps not in this case, but usually it is the beginning of the gradual training. When you remember these things, it's very easy that you get into the loop of memorizing the gradual training. Instead of actually stopping for just at that point, you then go through the gradual training as a natural consequence. That is what the mind is supposed to do usually when you start off with the target of the mind in the world. So you can see there that it's very easy for the mind to insert things because it's used to certain patterns in the sutras. And those patterns remind the mind, and then the mind just goes on. So in this case, there's a principle in what they call textual studies, or they compare texts in this case. That principle is called the principle of the more difficult reading, or the more unusual reading, the more unusual way of presentation is more likely to be the correct one then. Because it is more likely that the usual presentation gets established afterwards, because that is the way people are used to think. But the more unusual one is very difficult to arise from a usual kind of standard reading that exists in the sutras. I'm not sure if that is very clear, but the point is that the more difficult readings, the more unusual one, is more likely to be correct. This is one of these ways called textual criticism, to decide what is the more likely reading. So many scholars have pointed out, at least one scholar was very famous for comparative studies, that the Chinese Ajahn version of the sutta is more likely to be correct because it is a more unusual reading. And in that sutta, in the Ajahn, the whole gradual training from that point is actually missing. So I will just follow the Chinese because I agree with the idea that that is more likely to be corrected. So we cut down the next paragraphs. So the next paragraph starts with a noble desire to be virtuous. That does not exist in the Ajahn version. Noble disciple guards the doors of the senses, and immoderate in eating, devoted to wakefulness, possessing mindfulness and full awareness, resorting to a secure resting place. All of that goes out. And then it starts again with he abides contemplating the body as a body head. So you skip about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 paragraphs. And then you skip the first line of the second paragraph, and then you see that it says he abides contemplating the body as a body head. Have you found that then? Yeah?
No, it's not number 17 or 16 between 1 and 12.
Okay, so can you figure out where we went yesterday? Can you see that? Okay, then you skip 6 paragraphs. Yeah, I haven't got the numbers in mind, so I can't tell you, but yeah. Skip 6 paragraphs, and then that's the one. Yeah, that's what that works. Yeah. First of all, we have to find the right sutta.
When you go first,
yes.
It's Dantabhumi, 125,
yeah.
Paragraph 15 was where we ended. 16 to 21 are the ones that are used.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. 16
to 21 are not used here.
Right.
Those
Yeah.
are the
So start with paragraph 22. Yeah. 22. Dantabhumi Sutta. I've actually taken them out already. I apologize. They're already out. So that makes it very. Yeah. Okay. 22. Okay, so paragraph 22. Are you everybody okay? Yeah, everybody found it? Yeah. So it starts with the 4 Satipatthanas. So it says he abides contemplating the body and the body, ardent, fully aware and mindful, having put away covetousness and greed for the world. He abides contemplating feelings and feelings, mind and mind object and mind objects, ardent, fully aware and mindful, having put away covetousness and greed for the world. And those of you who have read the sutras a little bit, you know that this is the 4 Satipatthanas that are being talked about here. This is like the short, summary version of the 4 Satipatthanas. When the 4 Satipatthanas are talked about in the sutras, this is the way they usually are talked about. Satipatthana Sutta is like the expansion, and this is the short version. This is the standard version they are talked about. So you will notice here that in the the way it is in the Chinese Agama version, it actually, after you have purified body, speech, and mind, then you go to the Satipatthana practice. And this is essentially what I have been saying all along yesterday, that the way to establish mindfulness, the way to be ready to do things like Anapanasati and Satipatthana practices, is by purifying yourself first of all. This is exactly what this Agama version is saying. You purify body, speech, and mind. The mind part is very important here, not just morality through body and speech, but also the mind has to be pure. And then, when that purity is established, then you are ready for Satipatthana, which is exactly what I've been arguing before. You can see this here. And I would like to take a little bit of time explaining this Satipatthana formula, because it's not necessarily very obvious what these words mean. And these kind of short paragraphs often have a lot of meaning in them, which I think is important to actually contemplate a little bit. So first of all here, you have the advice contemplating the body as the body. And this is this famous phrase that people often talk about. What does it mean, the body as a body? Actually, the Pali says, kaya nupasi. And quite literally, it means contemplating a body in the body. That's quite literally the meaning, because kaya means in the body. It does not actually mean as the body. So a body in the body, or it can mean a body among bodies, because that's how this particular structure also can have that sort of meaning as well. So the question then is, what exactly does this mean? What does this point into? And the easiest explanation for understanding this is when you read the Anapanasati Sutta, in the Anapanasati Sutta, it says that the breath is called the body because it is one body among bodies, right? It is a certain body among bodies. So I would say that according to the Anapanasati Sutta, and if you disregard what the commentary says, then you find the meaning of this. I think this is a very likely meaning, that it means you contemplate one body, either in this body or one body among all possible bodies. So that, I think, is the correct meaning. Because again, if you take the suttas on their own and you see what the suttas have to say about these things, then that seems to be the likely conclusion. Then it becomes quite easy to see what it means. It means you're focusing on one aspect of the body, one body in the body, one group in the body, one particular collection of items within the physical body. That can be the breath, it can be the 32 parts of the body, it can be the 7 contemplations. These are all aspects of the body. They're like a body in the body, if you like. So the meaning becomes quite transparent, in my opinion anyway, what this means. So I think that at the very least, that's one possible meaning of this. And it's certainly the one that I would favor for this one here. And then it says ardent. Again, ardent has a sense of more like energetic, it's similar to virya. The sense that you have a natural virya inside of you, fully aware and mindful. Now, here you have mindfulness right there. So this word is sativa, it means having mindfulness. And what that means, that if you are going to practice Satipatthana, you have to be mindful at the outset. Satipatthana, the purpose of Satipatthana is not to create mindfulness. You have to have mindfulness in the beginning. So it says if you contemplate the body mindful, in other words, you have to be mindful to contemplate the body properly. That's what it says here. It's an adjective which describes how you do the contemplation. It's not a word which describes the outcome. It's a word which describes how you do it. So how you do it is you're ardent, you're fully aware, and you're mindful. Right? So that is again what I was saying before about to be able to do Satipatthana properly, you have to establish mindfulness first of all. And to be able to establish mindfulness, you have to purify yourself first of all. You can see here the sequence of things, how it moves along very beautifully here. You can understand what's happening here. So you have to establish mindfulness, and then you do Satipatthana. Some people say that the purpose of Satipatthana is to give rise to mindfulness. And it obviously is some truth to that, because as you do Satipatthana meditation, mindfulness will improve even further. But there has to be a minimum level of mindfulness at the beginning, and that is what this is saying here. You have to have a certain clarity. You have to have a minimum number of departments in the mind to be able for this to actually work. then you have to be fully aware. How the word fully aware is Ajahn, and it means like, it's often translated as clear comprehension. It is that you understand what you're doing. You have a clear idea of where you are headed. So in other words, while you do the Satipatthana practice, you can like check yourself. Is it going right? Am I heading in the right direction? Is it working properly? Am I getting the results I'm supposed to be getting in Satipatthana practice? You have clear comprehension. You understand what you're doing, what the purpose is, the direction you're heading in. So these are all important aspects here of the Satipatthana practice. Explain the commentary. You need to understand the purpose of what you're doing. You know where you're headed. You know that you're using the right means to achieve that purpose. In other words, what the practice you're doing now will end up in that goal. So you have clarity on what you're doing. If you see that what you're doing doesn't work in the right direction, it's not the right thing, then you can adjust your practice as you go along. So for example, if defilement arises, you're aware of that. You understand that defilement has arisen, like, okay, now it's time to overcome the defilement first, and then go back to the breath of Satipatthana afterwards. So you have clear awareness of what's happening. So it is an aspect of investigation there, but it's not really what the kind of investigation that is normally understood as Vipassana meditation. It's like a different thing here. It's investigation in the sense of just knowing what's happening in your mind and then taking the right action as a consequence of that.
But sometimes you really let go.
Yeah.
You know the reason or cause underneath the sense of that appear around us.
Yeah.
If we don't investigate, we may look superficially or know about it and we are like toxicity, another kind of mind of that example.
Yeah.
And we don't really resolve our issues.
You don't necessarily have to know the cause, why the right people necessarily have to do that. And this was one of the things about the Vipassana Sutta I was reading out yesterday. Sometimes all you have to do is you have to have developed the mind beforehand. So if you're able to, straight away you see the bad thought arising, and then you think in a different way, and you look at the good, something good and wholesome instead. This was what was explained yesterday about, maybe a bad thought about another person arises. Straight away, because you have developed the mind before, in compassion and in metta, you can switch your attention onto the good aspect instead. Or, if you have developed the mind beforehand to understand the danger in the negative thoughts, just reminding yourself of the danger. If you really understand that, it switches all like that. Right? So these are actually techniques that we find in the Vipassana Sutta as the most powerful ones. And then the next one is to not pay attention to the object that has arisen. And lastly, is just to watch it fading away, or just watching carefully. And then there's the suppression. So these are actually methods that the Buddha normally, would mention how to overcome these things. You can also investigate, and if you understand the cause, it might be helpful. But if you look at people, the most powerful technique is just to substitute wholesome thought instead, and to understand the danger in this thinking. Right? Yeah. Okay, and then we have the last one, having put away covetousness and greed for the world. So this covetousness and greed is a bit, one might wonder exactly what that means. But basically these two words are avijja, domanassa. And avijja is like desire, basically. And domanassa, quite literally, it means a bad mind. So it's like an unpleasant mind state. It means like aversion, something you have a negative experience to the sensual world around you. So it means desire and aversion, basically, what these two words mean. And world here, for the world, the world is loka in Pali. And this word has many different meanings depending on the context. But in this context, and this happens in several places in the Sutta, the meaning of loka seems to be just the world of the five senses. This is one meaning of loka, the world of the five senses, so the ordinary world that surrounds us. So you have put away desire and aversion for the world of the five senses, or anything that arises within the five sense realm. So that starts to make sense then, starts to have some meaning to it. And what is interesting here is that if you, in the standard gradual training, you find that, or rather, if you think about the Noble Eightfold Path, before Satipatthana, you have Samma Vayama or Samma Padana, right effort, right? And what is right effort? And one of the aspects of right effort is sense restraint. And sense restraint formula says that you should avoid avijja domanassa by restraining yourself from giving rise to these things when you have sexually contact with the world. So again, the right effort is what leads to Satipatthana, right? In the Eightfold Path, one factor leads to the next one. It's a sequential sequence, and right effort leads to Satipatthana. In right effort, you are restraining yourself from giving rise to avijja domanassa, desire and aversion with regard to the sense objects. And then, when you have been successful with that, then you come to Satipatthana. And that's why the Satipatthana formula starts with having put away covetousness, having put away desire and aversion. The having put away is what happens in right effort. And then once you have put it away, you come to right sati, right mindfulness. So again, you can see the gradualness here of the training here. And that is why this is having put away. You have finished the stroke in the previous step. That's what's happening here. So that is, gives you some sense there of what this brief formula is about. And then comes the simile of the taming of the elephant, comes back again. And then the Buddha then says to Ajahn, this novice Ajahn, just as Ajahn, the elephant tamer plants a large post in the earth and binds the forest elephant to it by the neck in order to subdue his forest habits. This is what we saw before. And to inculcate in him habits congenial to human beings. So, these four foundations of mindfulness are the bindings of the mind of the noble disciple in order to subdue his habits based on the household life, to subdue his memories and intentions based on the household life, to subdue his distress, fatigue, and fever based on the household life, and in order that he may attain the true way and realize Nibbana. So here the mindfulness, Satipatthana, is equated with like a post in the ground. It's something that holds you, holds the mind. And this is something you see also in other suttas, this idea that mindfulness, or not actually mindfulness, but the four Satipatthana specifically are like a post. Four Satipatthana, there are four, because there are four objects, right? The body, the feelings, the mind, and the dhammas. So these are the areas where a noble disciple, somebody practices, should hang out. This is the area that we should be focusing on. This is like the area of that binds the mind, holds the mind in the right place. And that's why it's called the bindings of the mind. And when you do that, then you are always improving. You cannot really go too far wrong when you do that. You're always improving in all sorts of steps. So what is happening here is that you are subduing the forest habits. So this is the taming of the mind that is happening here. And in particular, the forest habits you are subduing here are the fevers of the forest. This is what happened. This was explained in the forest. The fevers in the forest elephant are the fevers connected with the forest. And in the same way, the four foundations of mindfulness subdue the habits based on the household mind. Subdue the memories and intentions based on the household mind, the distress, fatigue, and fever based on the household mind. So again, this is about subduing the mind, taming the mind. You're undermining the desires of the ordinary mind, and you're purifying it of the last kind of defilements. So what this shows a number of things, but what it shows is that one of the purposes of the Satipatthana practice, you come to the Satipatthana already having given up desire and aversion for the world to a large extent, but there are still some refined defilements left in the mind. And these refined defilements that are left in the mind, these are the fevers and fatigues based on the household mind. So the purpose of Satipatthana is then to give up the final defilements and to help unify the mind on the object that you are using. That is an important understanding of Satipatthana, the purpose. it leads you towards samadhi. It takes you towards samadhi by getting rid of those last defilements. And of course then, when you do that, the further result of that is that you attain the true way and eventually realize Nibbana. Attaining the true way, this is called the Nyaya in Pali. And the Nyaya, which means almost like the method or the true way, as it says here, this is equivalent to dependent origination in the Sutta. So this basically means dependent origination. And so attaining the true way means that you become a street mentor, because it is the street mentor who understands dependent origination for the first time. When you make a breakthrough to dependent origination, that means you have become a street mentor. So that is what that means there. So this whole purpose of this is that you may eventually become a street mentor and then attain Nibbana. Attain Nibbana means becoming an arahant, a fully awakened person. It means the destruction, the final destruction of the defilements. It's important to understand that that's what Nibbana really means. Sometimes people think that Nibbana means that, what happens after the death of the arahant. Usually it doesn't mean that. Usually what Nibbana means is what you become an arahant, that is the attainment of Nibbana. And all it means is that you destroy the defilements in your mind. And that's why it's called extinguishment. You extinguish something. What you extinguish is the flames of defilements, the fire of the defilements inside of you. That is what is being extinguished here. So, this then is how the four foundations of mindfulness, or I prefer the four focuses of mindfulness, because you're focusing, you already have mindfulness, and you're focusing that mindfulness on four areas. The four foundations of mindfulness, it sounds like, if you think about that translation, it sounds like it is something you do to get mindfulness. But actually, the four Satipatthanas are about how you use mindfulness, not about how you get it, but how you use it. That's why I think the four focuses is a more appropriate translation. Four focuses on mindfulness. And then an interesting aspect here, because now they mention the Satipatthana formula one more time. Then the Tathagata disciplines it further. Come with you by contemplating the body and the body, but do not think thoughts connected with the body. By contemplating feelings, a feeling among feelings, but do not think thoughts connected with feelings. By contemplating a state of mind among states of mind, but do not think thoughts connected with the mind. And by contemplating an aspect of Dhamma and on aspects of Dhamma, but do not think thoughts connected with these Dhamma, these states, if you like. So here you can see you have basically subdivided Satipatthana into two types. And the first type is to overcome the defilements. And the second type here is a more refined type of Satipatthana, where the defilements basically have been overcome. And now you're focusing basically on the objects with a pure state of mind. So this is the difference here. So Satipatthana, just like everything else, has many levels to it. And this particular Satipatthana is called the Supatitita Satipatthana in the Sutta. It means well established in the mind. When you abandon defilements, Satipatthana becomes well established for the first time. And this is the sort of Satipatthana that can lead on to samadhi, and then later on lead on to enlightenment and awakening, which is the purpose of this whole thing. So this is the more profound Satipatthana. You don't think anymore. All you do is focus on these aspects of the mind. And when you do read the Anapanasati Sutta, you can see how this fits beautifully into the Anapanasati Sutta. Because in the Anapanasati Sutta, the mindfulness of breathing, you start off with a very coarse practice, you watch the breath going in and out. And then as you do that, you see the feelings start to arise. The type of feeling that arises out of piti, the sukha, the joy and the happiness that happens when you do very deep Anapanasati practice. And that is specifically said to be equivalent to the Vedana, the contemplation of feeling in Satipatthana. So when you breathe and you start to feel joy and happiness inside, that is the same thing as the contemplation of feeling in Satipatthana. And of course, when you have that kind of feeling in the meditation with the anapanasati, you're not thinking anymore. You put away the thinking a long time ago. The mind has become very pure and beautiful at this stage. The difficulties have disappeared. All we are doing is a very beautiful type of meditation practice. You just focus on the breath. And all that is in your mind is the breath and the joy and happiness connected with that breath. And that is what is described here as a type of satipatthana, which is more profound than the previous one. And then, of course, in the further step of the mindfulness of breathing, the step which is equivalent to the contemplation of the mind, that is where you start to go beyond the ordinary breath, and you start to have like nibbana in the mind, this light in the mind. They call obasa in the sutras. The obasa, the light in the mind. And that is then equivalent to contemplation of mind, because here you're putting away the body completely, and you're starting to get to know your mind much more clearly, because the body starts to disappear. There isn't much sense. The sense activity is almost completely gone. It might impinge a little bit sometimes, but it's almost completely gone. And all we're having now is the mind state. So again, there's no thinking really happening at this stage. There's a little bit of movement perhaps in the mind, but what we're doing is contemplating mind. And this is then why this is the aspect of satipatthana, which is mind contemplation. So you can see here, anapanasati and satipatthana going hand in hand, and being very closely related to each other. And what the Satipatthana Sutta says, and this again is from the Agamas, because the Agama version of the Satipatthana Sutta, from the Anapanasati Sutta, is slightly different again from the Pali version. And in the Agama version, it's very clear that it means what you're contemplating, says that it's a feeling among feelings. Why? Because when you do Anapanasati, the joy and happiness that arises in the mind is one type of feeling among all possible feelings that we can contemplate and that we can experience. And that's why it is a feeling among feelings. Then when you get into the Samadhi Nirvana stage, you're seeing the mind in a certain way. It is one mind state among all possible mind states. That is how it's explained in the Agama. It literally says that. This is called a chitta-vipassana because it is the contemplation of one type of mind among all possible types of mind. So that makes good sense for me. That is, for me, a beautiful translation because it's easy to understand. You're contemplating a feeling among feelings. You're contemplating a mind state among mind states. And then it sort of comes together in that sense. And then lastly, you have the contemplation of, it says here, mind objects. But really, what you are contemplating here is that in the Anapanasati Sutta, it says again, anicca, impermanence, viraga, fading away, nirodha, cessation, patanissaka, which is the relinquishment of things. So what you're doing there is you're contemplating how your experience changes, how certain things disappear, how other things that arise, and how the more you relinquish, the more you give up, the more things cease, the more powerful that state is, the more blissful it is, and the better that state actually is. So you understand the nature of cessation, of things fading away, and things disappearing. And because, again, you are focusing on certain aspects, you're focusing on certain dhamma, certain qualities among other qualities. So one translation here is to basically translate dhamma here as qualities, contemplating certain qualities among qualities. In other words, certain aspects like impermanence, fading away, etc. And then relating that to the objects that you have been doing, using in your meditation. Particularly if you're doing breath meditation, you can see all along how the breath starts to become fainter, how the breath disappears. If you remember that, you're contemplating nirodha, the cessation of the breath. This is what you're doing basically. So, and then comes the interesting thing, because then, or another, not the issue, but one of many interesting things, because then, having done this refined type of the Satipatthana practice, which can be understood in terms of Anapanasati, then the Buddha said, with the spirit of applied and sustained thought, he enters upon and abides in the second jhana, which has self-confidence and singleness of mind, without applied and sustained thought, with rapture and pleasure born of concentration or samadhi. The first thing to notice here is how Satipatthana leads to the jhanas, right? Satipatthana practice leads to the jhanas. One thing comes after the other. And that is what we would expect, because in the normal Eightfold Path, factor number 7 is right mindfulness, Satipatthana. Factor number 8 is right samadhi, right samadhi. And the factors of the Noble Eightfold Path are sequential. One leads to the other one. And this is another way of showing that one leads to the other thing. So the purpose of Satipatthana practice, the main purpose, as it is described in the suttas, and this may not be clear if you just read the Satipatthana Sutta, this may not be clear. If you want to understand Satipatthana, you cannot just read the Satipatthana Sutta. You have to look at how Satipatthana fits in with the main training across a number of suttas. How does it fit in? And this is one example which shows you how it fits in. The purpose of Satipatthana in the gradual training is to lead to the jhanas. This is something you're not going to hear very often, but it is something that is very clear in the suttas. One thing leads to the other one. So this should be the purpose. And that is how you know that you're practicing Satipatthana in a way that actually works, that it leads towards samadhi. Your mind is becoming more and more peaceful, more and more quiet, and eventually you get to the jhana stage. Then, the other interesting thing here is that the first jhana is missing. It just goes straight from Satipatthana to the second jhana. And again, if you look at the Chinese Agama version of the sutta, that version actually does have the first jhana in there. So then the question is again, is it the Agama version or the Nikaya version which is more likely to be correct? And in this case, I think perhaps the Pali version is more likely to be correct, simply because it is very unusual to skip the first jhana. It is again the more difficult reading, the more unusual reading. It's very hard to see how the first jhana could be lost if it was in there. But if there was an original reading which had skipped the first jhana, it's very easy to say somebody thinking, oh, somebody has forgotten the first jhana, let's put it back in again. Or they would simply automatically, when you do the recitation, which is oral, it's automatic that you put in the first jhana, because you don't think about it, you recite very fast, automatically gets put in there. So again, it's a more difficult reading. It's one of the principles of textual study. The more difficult and unusual reading is more likely to be correct. And that's why I think in this case, the Pali reading may actually be right. So how can it be that you go straight from Satipatthana to the second jhana? And remember that Satipatthana practice often includes things like jhana. If you look at the Vedana and Asana, part of those Vedanas are feelings which are only experienced in deep samadhi. You have what is called the Niramisa Sutta. Niramisa, Amisa literally means flesh or meat, if you like it. So it's like the worldly happiness, the flesh of the happiness of the body, if you want it. Niramisa, Nira is like the negation. It means without the flesh. It is the unworldly happiness, the spiritual happiness. And it is defined in the Sutta as particularly the happiness of the jhanas. And then when you go to the Chitta Vipassana, in the Satipatthana Sutta, you have things like the Mahangata Chitta that you're supposed to contemplate. You have the, what else do you have? You have the Anuttara Chitta. You have the Appamada Chitta. That is there, I can't remember now. But some of these terms, particularly Mahangata and Anuttara, it refers to deep states of samadhi, which includes the jhanas. So jhanas, or at the very least the first jhana, is part of the Satipatthana practice, when Satipatthana becomes very deep and very profound. And that is one reason why I think that the first jhana might be included here in Satipatthana, because it is part of this thing called Satipatthana. It can be part of that. Anyway, that's just it's really a side issue. It doesn't really matter so much how you actually look at these things. So then we have the four jhanas. Let's see how we go for time, okay? Maybe go a few more minutes before we have a break. So we have the three jhanas here with the four then. And maybe I can explain a little bit about this jhana. It's interesting to know how the jhanas, what they actually mean and how they actually work. So we have the second jhana, which says here, apply and sustain thought, which is, the words here actually are Vitakka and Vichara, and you will notice that in this case, Vitakka and Vichara is the stealing of those things, these things are completely ceased in the second jhana. There's no vitakka and vichara in the second jhana. So what does that mean? Very often vitakka vichara can be like thinking. But here, because we are talking about the stealing of these things, the complete ending of these things, it must refer to very refined aspects of thinking. And what is the most refined aspect of thinking? It is the movement of the mind in any kind of shape, in any kind of thinking. So when vitakka vichara ceases completely, there's no thinking at all, it must mean that the mind becomes completely still. There's no movement anymore. So that is because we're talking about the most refined aspects possible of thought, because it ceases completely at this point. So it means the mind becoming completely unified, completely still, absolutely still on the object. And that is why it says here that it has complete self-confidence in the sense that you have confidence in the object. You're not wavering anymore, you're completely confident. So that's why it's also called singleness of mind. Singleness of mind, because these things are states where you don't feel anymore the separation between subject and object. There's complete unification. It's a single experience. Experience is the experience of bliss, the experience of happiness. There's nothing more. There's no you, there's no object, there's just bliss, nothing else. So very, very profound things, these jhana states. And we have the rapture and pleasure born of concentration. And then you go through the third jhana, when rapture disappears and you have pure happiness. This is the first time in samsara where you actually experience pure happiness on its own. Nothing but pure happiness. That is the third jhana. This is the highest type of feeling happiness that you can have. Beyond that, you get equanimity. Now, it turns out that equanimity is a more pleasurable and happy feeling. So, happy, but this is the highest type of happy feeling that you can have in samsara when we come to the third jhana. So, this is happiness at its peak. And then comes the astonishing thing, because then you give up the happiness, you enter the fourth jhana, you get to a state of equanimity, and you find out for the first time that equanimity is preferable to happiness. Happiness is not actually that nice, because happiness is still quite coarse. Well, I'm exaggerating, it's not quite coarse, it is coarse compared to equanimity. So it is, this is a very, very profound thing when you realize that equanimity is better than happiness. We're always seeking for happiness in the world, we're looking for happy states, feeling good, feeling happy, and here you see for the first time that equanimity is actually preferable. It is impossible to understand this unless you actually attain this state. You cannot see these things because they're so refined that you actually have to go through it to understand that. The type of happiness that you're talking about in the third jhana is so refined and so powerful that even getting that will sort of blow your mind completely. And then when you realize that there's something beyond that is when you start to really is mind-blowing. So that is the jhana. I'm not going to say much more about that. You could say a few things, but I think that's enough because these are very, very deep states, and the state probably a little bit theoretical at that point. Okay, then comes in the sutta comes the recollection of past nights, and then comes the understanding of the laws of karma, and then comes the cessation of the ending of the asana, the full awakening experience. And all of that, again, is in the Pali, but it's not found in the Chinese Agama. And again, I think the reason is it's more likely to have been inserted in the Pali, because these things are usually part of the gradual training, whereas, so they would have come in as part of the gradual training. But because this sutta doesn't really seem to be about the gradual training, it's about the taming of the elephant in a more general, different way, I think it's likely that this has been inserted afterwards, and the Chinese Agama are more likely to be correct. In fact, this sutta really is about how to reach one-pointedness of mind, right? That's how it started off. The prince was asking about, is it possible to attain one-pointedness of mind? So that's what this sutta is about. It's not about the full awakening. It's how to get to one-pointedness of mind. So we'll leave all those things out, and then we're coming towards the conclusion of this sutta. Maybe I'll just finish it off because there isn't that much more to go, and we can start off on the next sutta afterwards. So then it says that bhikkhu is is able to endure cold and heat, hunger and thirst, and contact with gas flies, mosquitoes, etc. Can you see that? Is that what you've got there? Yeah? Okay. With gas flies, mosquitoes, wind, the sun, and creeping things, he is able to endure ill-spoken, unwelcome words, and arisen bodily feelings that are painful, rattling, sharp, piercing, disagreeable, distressing, and menacing to life. Then it says here, the rid or must take rid, I will take that out, that's not found in the Chinese again. And just purge or close. He is worthy of gifts, worthy of hospitality, worthy of offerings, worthy of reverential salutations, and unsurpassed deal of merit for the world. So, again, the interesting thing here is that this, if you follow the way I've been reading the Sutta, this refers to somebody who has attained the fourth jhana. And you can see here that this is similar to the imperturbability that we saw yesterday of the elephant. The elephant is imperturbable. In other words, when he's challenged with spears, when he's challenged by all these men standing around him, and they're beating the drums, and they're doing all kinds of things to try to disturb the elephant. But when the elephant has been properly tamed, it doesn't matter how you threaten it, how you try to scare it. The elephant has become imperturbable. It just stands there, doesn't move. That's what it means by imperturbable. And in the same way, the bhikkhu who has attained the fourth jhana is also imperturbable. And the formula, the way that the fourth jhana is described in the Sutta is precisely as imperturbable. So this is what it means. It means that you can no longer be perturbed. Whatever happens to you, you're able to endure it. You can deal with all these kind of things. It's not a problem. Of course, if somebody had been fully awakened in Ajahn, of course they would have been able to endure these things. So it makes more sense that this actually relates to the fourth jhanas instead. So, he has become imperturbable now. And then, it says, he is worthy of gifts, worthy of hospitality, worthy of offerings, worthy of reverential salutations, and unsurpassed skill and merit for the world. This is usually what you hear about for the noble disciples. They are said to have these qualities. But here it is the person of the fourth jhana who is said to have these qualities. Normally, if you get to the fourth jhana, normally you will be an Aryan, you will be a noble person anyway, because these states are so deep, and usually they tend to go together. If you have that sense of samadhi, you will also normally be an Arya at the lecture. But anyway, it shows you how highly praised these jhanas are in the suttas, in the sense that a person attains this is said to be, again, on the same level, basically, as somebody who is an Arya. So if you can attain that sort of samadhi, then you are essentially here on the level of the Aryas. And this is what you see throughout the sutta. Jhanas are always, as I mentioned before, classified together with the four attainments of awakening, four levels of awakening. So, and of course, one important reason why you are able to endure all these things is precisely that in the fourth jhana you have attained equanimity. You have gone beyond happiness and suffering. You are no longer, these things are no longer important to you. So that equanimity means that you have understood that any kind of feeling, happy and negative feelings in particular, these things are just to be put to one side. There's nothing there to be sought for. There's no happiness to be found in these things anyway, because equanimity is a higher standard. So, that is the training. Of course, here then, in the Chinese version, they have the simile of the taming. Last simile of the taming of the elephant comes in, and they repeat that, where it shows the training of the elephant in the imperturbability. And that fits very well to the context. Then the Pali continues. If Ajahn, the king's elephant, dies in old age, untamed and undisciplined, then he is considered an old elephant that has died untamed death. If the king's elephant dies when middle-aged, untamed and undisciplined, then he is considered a middle-aged elephant that has died an untamed death. If the king's elephant dies when young, untamed and undisciplined, then he is considered a young elephant that has died an untamed death. So too, Ajahn, if an elder bhikkhu dies, the Pali has, with his tank destroyed, the Chinese has without being well-trained, which fits the context of the four jhanas better. So I'll just follow the Chinese version. So too, Ajahn, if an elder bhikkhu dies without being well-trained, then is considered an elder bhikkhu who has died an untamed death. If it's bhikkhu of middle status dies without being well-trained, then is considered a bhikkhu of middle status who has died an untamed death. If a newly ordained bhikkhu dies without being well-trained, then is considered a newly ordained bhikkhu who has died an untamed death. So, the taming of the mind happens when you attain the fourth jhana. And of course, beyond that, the full taming happens when you also attain awakening, because then your mind will never return to be untrained or untamed again. So this is the mind. When you have the fourth jhana, you feel in charge of yourself, you feel in control. Again, this is the samadhi indriya, the samadhi bhava, the power of samadhi, the indriya of samadhi, where you are in charge of your mind. The mind doesn't run here and run there. The thinking doesn't take you from this to that. But you can direct the mind wherever you want. You can direct the mind this way or that way. You are feeling like you're in control the first time you do it of your mind, rather than thinking being in control. That's why you are tamed at this stage. So then the Buddha says, if Ajahn, the king's elephant dies in old age, well-tamed and well-disciplined, then he is considered old elephant that has died a tamed death. And the same for the middle-aged and the young elephant. Again, I'm repetitive here. So too, Ajahn, if an elder bhikkhu dies, and the Pali says with his tamed destroyed, the Chinese says well-trained, and I will call the Chinese again. If an elder bhikkhu dies well-trained, then he is considered an elder bhikkhu who has died a tamed death. If a bhikkhu of middle status dies well-trained, then he is considered a bhikkhu of middle status who has died a tamed death. If a newly ordained bhikkhu dies well-trained, then he is considered a newly ordained bhikkhu who has died a tamed death. That is what the Blessed One said. The novice Shrivata was satisfied and delighted in the Blessed One's words. So, okay. Maybe we've been going for quite long now already, almost an hour I think, so let's have a break and we can take some questions. Do you want to take the questions afterwards then? Is that okay? Do you want to do it now? What do you think? Do it afterwards or should we do the questions now then? Okay, let's do the questions. Let's do a couple of questions now and do the rest afterwards. Okay. Yeah. When, sorry? Coma patient. I doubt it, because I don't think they have much awareness at all. So I think that's very difficult for the coma patients. I think usually coma patients doesn't really know what's happening yet. Sometimes they have a faint, sometimes they have a faint awareness, like a subconscious awareness. So if you go to them and you say some nice things, and you give them some metta and compassion or whatever, sometimes they can feel the kindness coming from you, on the kind of subconscious level. But I don't think they can be aware of it. Yes, behind there, yeah. Yes? There can be, yes. Yeah, there can be, because if you look at the kind of in the Sutta, it says also about contemplating mind and mind. It mentions all the types of mind states you can have, the minds that are pure without defilements, the mind states that have grain, the Mahasana Chitta, the Bhikkhu Chitta, the mind which is like abundant and all these kind of things are mentioned in there. So definitely the nimitta, the kind of the life of the mind is part and parcel of that. So you find that both in the Satipatthana and you also find it in the Anapanasati. Let's have a break. Let's just do a bit of walking, stretching of the legs. We'll come back and do a bit of meditation afterwards. Then we'll continue.